Hello everybody, today we're looking at the Audient iD4 audio interface. Before we get to the device itself, let's have a quick look at the manufacturer's website, have a look and see whether they offer good drivers and support, and talk a little bit about what the key features, and then I'll take you through the device and give you some thoughts at the end in the usual 10-minute video. Let's have a quick look at Amazon and see how much it retails for. £120. And as you can see, it's part of a range of other devices. Obviously, the more that you pay, the more technical specifications and facilities the devices offer. Let's go to their website and have a look at the features. My understanding is that Audient is a UK-based company that manufactures its devices elsewhere. And here is the iD4 itself. Mine is the Mark II version currently on sale. And here are the key features according to the website. I think the key claims here are its unique ergonomics and design, its low noise microphone input and its quality sound output, and those are the kind of main unique selling points I would argue, along with a dual headphone output and a reputedly very good audio quality. The device is compatible with both Windows and iOS devices, is powered by USB 3 but can be adapted to a USB 2 type port, as I'll show you later. And here's mine. So let's have a little look through what it looks like and talk a little bit about the various inputs and outputs, and then I'll give you some thoughts on the positives and possibly any downsides and who this device might suit. As you can see, it's not really a conventional design and has much fewer knob switches and buttons on it than a lot of audio interfaces. It's quite small on the desktop, which is nice, and it's also very solidly constructed with a metal chassis, and certainly I think if you're a traveller, it's probably going to stand up to the rigours of travelling around reasonably well. The device has two inputs, a guitar or instrument input here, a microphone input, these are the sort of gain levels, a mix, a speaker mute and an ID button, and the main control is a volume control, a software volume control, but also has a sort of mute function. And you can see we've got VU meters, an indicator for 48 volt or phantom power, USB connection, and those are sort of VU meters. On the front of the device, facing you on the table, is a guitar or instrument input and two headphone outputs that are connected together. Nothing on this side, and if you switch around to the back, you can see the main microphone input with the phantom power button, the main output to any speakers, and the USB-C connection. Nothing really on the right-hand side, and that's essentially what you've got. In order to connect a condenser style mic, I use one of these adapters, but you still have to power it using the 48 volts if you want to hear the microphone working. This might be useful for gamers. A lot of gamers just use condenser mics, so that's what I use typically. The quality is okay, it's not sort of studio quality, but it's presumably good enough, and that would be your main volume control. I've powered on the device now, and you can see the USB light is lit, and as I increase the main volume, the VU meter or volume meter increases accordingly to indicate where we are. Point to note here is that you can't tell where the volume is set from the position of the button. It's a software button. The volume level is indicated by the LEDs when you're moving the button and disappears shortly after when you've finished. An important point to note here is that the volume resets to 0 every time you cycle the power to the device, and that there is no separate volume control for headphones and speaker out, so they're linked together and you can't control them separately or independently on the device. So if you're recording a bass or a guitar track, a standard guitar or bass cable will plug in here, and then often when recording or doing voiceovers or video editing, I use headphones because obviously it cuts down on the background noise. My current headphone of choice is the Sennheiser HD650s, which come with a 1/4 inch jack that plugs in on the right hand side. This interface features a high current headphone amplifier and also has a 3.5mm output, as well as the 1/4 inch one that I'm using on the front of the unit. And the same audio signal comes out of both connectors simultaneously, so it doesn't matter which one you plug in your headphones. When recording voiceover audio, I sometimes use these Philips headphones, which are also fitted with a mod mic. It's also very good when I'm gaming, and the use of these headphones and with the mod mic attached highlights one of the issues with the design of this particular interface, because they're fitted with a condenser mic, so it requires the adapter on the back. And what I can show you is that when you plug the headphones into the front and then you try and plug into the adapter at the back, typical fly lead that you get for use with the mod mic just doesn't stretch far enough, and sort of illustrates one of the problems ergonomically with this device, having the audio outs and the instrument in on the front but the microphone on the back. Doesn't work very well for me, or at least not as well as it would do with a more conventional design. Something else worthy of pointing out, particularly for those people who are going to use this device for recording instruments in its sort of conventional audio interface function, is that there is no clipping indicator on the device. This is the first audio interface that I've had which doesn't have that. And in the inserts that are about to appear, you'll see the clipping indicators on the Behringer and the Focusrite devices that I've used. This actually caused me considerable problems because you basically have to do it by ear, and that is much more difficult to do and easy to forget. So I think this is a bit of a flaw in the device myself. A quick note about the USB cable, which is USB-C at both ends. Most modern computers have these connectors, but if you are using an older computer, then you can use an adapter to get back to a sort of USB-B type connector. What the manual says is that the unit will operate at reduced power and it will affect things like the headphone output. I have done this and it hasn't caused me any problems. For a standard computer speaker input, you might want to use an adapter like this 1/4 inch to 3.5mm female, which are easily available online. That's to connect from the output to your speakers. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're using a mod mic or a headset boom mic with an adapter, like the one that looks a bit like this, these don't work very well with this device because of the shortness of the cables, and they don't fit round the back and front inputs as well as they could do. To get around this, what you need to do is you'll need to buy an extension for your microphone cable. An inconvenience, but it does work and is what I'm using right now to record on this device. I found the drivers and software associated with the ID4 to be stable and functional. The software interface for the device sits in the toolbar down at the bottom here. You can obviously check that you've got the latest BIOS, and I really like the fact that it has the option to check for updates directly in the toolbar functionality, so we can see whether our firmware is already up to date. Also located in the same place is access to help should you require it, and you can adjust both the buffer and the sample rate, although you may need to restart applications if you try and make changes on the fly. The other thing that you access from this menu is the audio loopback functionality, which allows you to loop audio from one application to another through the software, enabling you to blend from the microphone, the DI inputs, as well as the playback of your computer into a single signal. For those users that understand this functionality, and maybe the more advanced users of audio interfaces, I've no doubt this is a useful function. Personally, as a sort of relatively low-level user for basic functionality, I found this quite difficult to understand and difficult to use. So I think for a lot of users, they will find this confusing and not particularly helpful. You also have to reconfigure your DAW to make use of this functionality, so it affects the general setup of your PC as well, which I found additionally inconvenient. In general, though, I think Audient deserves credit for a simple and well-designed software interface and stable drivers. So let's conclude with a summary of the pluses and minuses. Who is this for, and whether I'd recommend it? Well, I like the low noise, good sound quality, and I think it's an attractive device. I think it also makes a good external sound card. So for this, I think the sort of person this is for someone who maybe only does occasionally use the or never uses the audio interface and recording capabilities, but instead prefers a high quality external sound card and likes the ergonomics of the device as it is. For me though, in spite of its qualities, the lack of a separate headphone volume control, the annoying volume behavior where it goes to 0 every time that you cycle the device power, the lack of a clipping indicator, and the positioning of the input and output jacks being inconvenient, and the price means that I think that other budget audio interfaces are better choices. For example, the Behringer 204 HD would be, in my opinion, a better choice in terms of functionality and all-round performance, and also has decent sound quality. But for the right person, I can understand why someone might find this device attractive, but personally, I don't think it's the best buy in the market, and I think it has some design issues that make it less convenient to use than many of its competitors. Okay, thanks. See you in the next video.